Today is October 16th. It's the 289th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. Today we're talking about some pretty gruesome stuff. So, just a heads up. Marie Antoinette is having a bad hair day. Around 7 a.m., her servant Rosalie cuts her long locks of hair off in a few quick strokes that leaves Marie with a rather inelegant bob. And then Marie Antoinette loses all of her hair, along with the rest of her head, when she's executed by a guillotine in the Place de la Révolution on this day in 1793. It is the height of the French Revolution, and the large square in Paris that is the present-day Place de la Concorde is center stage. Marie Antoinette is born in 1755 in Vienna, Austria, the daughter of Emperor Francis I of the Holy Roman Empire. She's married off to the heir apparent to the French throne when she's 14 years old. She is 18 when he becomes King Louis XVI of France, and she, Queen of France, in 1774. Marie is not a popular queen. At first, sure, but soon she's disliked by most people in France. She lives a lavish lifestyle of debauchery and extravagance, and because of that, she is blamed for France's economic woes. She's also forever sympathetic to her native Austria, a country which many in the French diplomatic circles still see as an enemy of France. They call Marie l'Autrichienne, the Austrian dog. By the time of the French Revolution in 1789, Marie Antoinette and her husband Louis XVI symbolize everything that is wrong in France. They are placed under house arrest that year and then try to escape to Austria in 1791, but they're caught at the border. Marie goes to sleep that night and wakes up the next morning to find that all of her hair has turned completely white. Marie and Louis are once again placed under house arrest. In 1792, the monarchy is abolished and the royal family is imprisoned in the Tower of the Temple. And in early 1793, Louis XVI is executed. Marie Antoinette, now a widow, can only hope she does not share the same fate. King Louis is executed by guillotine at the hands of the royal executioner of France, Henri Sanson. Henri Sanson is the fourth Charles Sanson to hold the position of executioner of Paris. He is the most famous of the Sanson family executioners and comes to be known as Monsieur de Paris, the gentleman of Paris. The seemingly complimentary moniker is anything but. The Sanson family live as outsiders, shunned by the rest of society. Their children are excluded from schools. The churches refuse to marry them into any families other than those of other executioners. Even shopkeepers go so far as to maintain a separate stock of bread, meats, and cheeses to sell to the executioners, to keep the executioners' food separate from food sold to everyone else. For as much as they revel in the executions that Monsieur de Paris presides over, they don't wish to be tainted in any way by his dark touch. The job of executioner is handed down from generation to generation, because no one else wants to do it. And even though Henri Sanson abhors his vocation, he has no choice but to accept the position passed on to him from his father, Charles Jean Baptiste, and from his grandfather, Charles, before him, and his great-grandfather, Charles, to begin with. Charles-Henri does not enjoy his job, but it's just a job as far as he's concerned. He feels little sorrow for the nearly 3,000 lives he takes in his 38-year career. The job of executioner is physically demanding, and it's an inexact science. There's no standardized form of execution when Charles-Henri begins as an apprentice in the 1750s. And more than one execution a day can just be exhausting, especially if you have to flay someone over a breaking wheel in the morning and then draw and quarter someone in the afternoon. Soon after the start of the French Revolution in 1789, Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine begins to lobby the National Assembly for a more humane means of capital punishment, one that achieves the goal of ending the life of the condemned, but without inflicting suffering and torture upon them. Guillotine gets together with another physician, Antoine Louis, and Tobias Schmidt, a German engineer who specializes in building harpsichords. They bring in Monsieur de Paris, Charles-Henri Sanson, who is beginning to get overbooked with all of the revolution's executions. There are more and more every day, sometimes a dozen traitors a day kneel before his axe. Together, Guillotine, Louis, Schmidt, and Sanson design and refine an efficient decapitation machine with an angled blade that drops swiftly and does the job in one clean stroke. And an even cleaner stroke if the condemned's family pays the executioner a little extra to make the blade extra sharp. At the apex of the Reign of Terror, Charles-Henri Sanson executes 300 people in 3 days. Charles-Henri's son Gabriel has been his apprentice for a few years now, preparing to take over from his father as the next Monsieur de Paris. However, in 1792, Gabriel, while holding a severed head aloft to a cheering mob, slips on the scaffold and falls to his death on the ground below. Charles-Henri's other son, Henri, is now in line to take over the family business. He begins his work as apprentice and very soon is conducting executions of his own, including that of Marie Antoinette on this day in 1793. Marie Antoinette is given a speedy trial, so speedy she isn't even told about it until it begins on October 14, 1793. 2 days later, in the early morning hours of this day, the jury finds her guilty of treason, conspiracy, and collusion with domestic and foreign enemies. A charge of incest with her son is thrown out. Marie is sentenced to death. According to her attorneys, she is, quote, annihilated by surprise. However, she puts on a stoic face and returns to her cell, where she writes a letter to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth, at 4:30 a.m. And then at 7 a.m., Marie Antoinette changes into a white dress and gets her hair cut, short, to expose her neck for Monsieur de Paris. Marie rides in a wooden cart from her prison cell to the Place de la Révolution. A priest rides in the cart with her, but she ignores him. Her hands bound behind her back, she sits up and stares straight ahead. Upon arrival at the end of the line, she reacts at the sight of the guillotine that awaits her, but she regains her composure and steps down out of the cart. As she climbs up the scaffold, she accidentally steps on someone's foot. It belongs to executioner Henri Sanson. Marie Antoinette reportedly says to him, quote, "Pardon me, sir, I meant not to do it." Her last words, before she lays down on the guillotine, feels a brief chill on her neck, and then sees wicker spinning close in front of her face, feels an odd sensation of nothing, then feels someone pull her newly shorn hair, and is suddenly and momentarily flying up above a crazed mob of Parisians, who then blur in a growing field of stars that fade to black. There are 76 days left in the year.